to Shattering Myths. In our second hour, as we like to do, as we have a custom of doing, we'd like to turn our attention to the things that Yahowah told us, particularly about his covenant, since it is the alternative to human institutions. Forming a relationship with God is option one. Option two is being part of human, religious, political, military, economic schemes, institutions. If you don't like, if you think schemes is derogatory, then casting your lot in with and showing an affinity to a religion, a political party, a patriotic cause is option two. Option one is to participate in the covenant. We have our resident artist and examiner of jots and tittles, Kirk, on the line. And Kirk, my guess is you prefer option one. I know I do.
Yes, indeed. Good morning, by the way. And
thank you.
We were Scott and I were talking about where we should be sending some money for this homeless guy out there in the middle of the
thank you. Thank you. It's the first time in my life that I have been homeless. We chose this fate, but we are indeed homeless. And vagabonds.
Well, I don't know what a Motel 6 is running now, but I'm sure we can come up with enough to
thank you.
Off the street, you know.
My wife and my dog would be so appreciative.
Okay. Okay, let us know where to wire the money.
Thank you. You know what I think would be generous of you, if you and Larry, who did a marvelous job with Scott of filling in my absence, if you and Larry would and Scott would, well, particularly you and Larry would donate the amount of money that you earned being guest host during those days.
I can speak on behalf of Larry. Every dime you can have.
Thank you.
I was going to say, man, I'm the one that got paid for that.
I know. That's why I know I backed your name out.
Back that out. Yeah, back that part out.
Yeah, you know, I don't think that I have ever been in a situation where I've actually enjoyed the environment that I'm broadcasting from more than today. And, you know, and I don't very often get nervous regarding a program. I mean, there's so much to talk about, and so I always just look forward to the start of the program. I'm never anxious about it. I was a little anxious this morning because, you know, I'm in a clubhouse. I'm a guest of a club, and I'm dealing with connections that I'm unfamiliar with, working off a little laptop screen as opposed to having my computer and all the access on that I would previously have on both sides. And so, you know, I'm in an entirely different situation than what I'm accustomed to. And so I was a little nervous this morning, but, you know, it's to be welcomed into a new community by people who have been as genuine as we've experienced here. Turned out to be one of the more enjoyable experiences I've yet had. So we're really not as destitute as it might imply, being unable to buy a house and having sold the house in California. And because my wife has, as I left this morning, she said, you know, we're just going to smile and move on. I am duty bound by my love and respect for my wife to express my actual sentiments based upon what has happened since we have arrived here in terms of our quest to buy a home. So I'm just going to smile and tell you that we're enjoying being here near our son and daughter-in-law. Now, returning to the covenant. What I'd like to do is, because the sign of the covenant is circumcision for lots and lots of reasons, Yahowah chose it as our way of saying that we understand the concept of separation, particularly at the part of our anatomy that is most closely associated with the birth of children into a loving family, and the part of our anatomy that is we use as an expression of our love in a monogamous and faithful marriage relationship. And he chose a concept of separation even in that he cut the covenant, and there is a little cutting on that particular implement of mankind. Personally, I think it's brilliant. I always think it's even funny in a way. I think the more I come to know God, I find that almost everything that he does is about laughter and having fun. There's a reason that the first child of the covenant was named Yishak, which I suspect you can translate for us.
Well, it certainly means laughter.
Yeah.
So, and you can't have much more fun than a family, and a family that's laughing. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. And so the covenant is about having fun. It's being part of a family that enjoys doing things together. And from what I can surmise, and I'd love someone to play devil's advocate if you think that I'm wrong here. I mean, there's a lot of times where I'll say, listen, this is my personal take on something, and I'll say, I could be wrong, and it's just something to think about. In this particular case, I think I'm on pretty solid ground. But if you have a different view, please feel free. I think Yahowah has invited us into the covenant because there are two things that he really enjoys. One of those things is camping out, exploring. Now, we're not talking about camping in the sense of roughing it. Yahowah doesn't rough it. But this is camping out in the most spectacular circumstances and going on the most marvelous voyages of discovery. And I think God finds that fun. Traveling, going to places that you haven't yet seen and getting to know what's occurring there, seeing it with your own eyes, witnessing, experiencing everything that is not only our world, but our universe has to offer. I think God finds that fun. The other thing I think he finds fun, let me just throw out the other one, and then you can, because I think there's actually three here, and love for you expand on it or to challenge them. I think the second thing God finds fun is he enjoys teaching. I don't consider myself a teacher, but I enjoy sharing what God's Word says to teach what the teacher had to say. And when people grow and learn and come to know and understand based upon an appreciation for his teaching, I find that to be the single most satisfying thing that I do with my life. So I think God actually enjoys the role of teacher and the interaction and the growth that transpires between teaching and the teacher and the student. Because when you are teaching, you enrich your student. You empower your student. And I think Yahowah likes that. The third thing I think Yahowah really enjoys is sharing. It's one thing to, Howard Hughes, for example, had a lot of money. Howard Hughes was not much into sharing. He died a miserable old man. Yahowah is a little bit richer than Howard Hughes. Just a smidgen. But Yahowah really likes sharing. Yahowah's idea is, if I can give to my children everything that I have, and I give them everything I have, I'll be richer for the experience of having done so, for that choice. You can be made richer by giving away everything you have to your children. So I think that's the three things that Yahowah wants, and I think that's what he likes.
Well, the first one, just my couple of tiny comments. The first one kind of explains to me why Yahowah is not omnipotent and omnipresent, because I think he allows things to be evolving. Otherwise, he would know everything, and it'd be no fun to explore.
Correct.
So he creates things that expand, and then let's go out and see what happened to it, or let's see what it is.
Yeah, isn't that neat? Yeah, well, I've never thought of that. I've never made that connection. But that's not a little thing. That's a big thing. What you're saying is that by Yahowah not being all-knowing and all-present, the Christian concept, God is all-knowing and he's all present everywhere. and knows everything. If God was present everywhere and knowing everything, then there would be nothing that he could experience which would cause him to grow, or that would bring him pleasure, or that would in any way alter his circumstance. So why would you even go through this experience if there was nothing that you could do that would change your reality?
And why have an expanding universe? Why would he create it that way?
Right. But so what you're saying is that it's not that just that Yahowah wants to share what he has created with his children by going out and exploring the universe, that he too wants to witness and see the results of his creation, and that he's going to find as much pleasure in witnessing as he is in sharing it.
Well, don't you think?
I'm totally agreeing with you. I just never thought of it before. No, I think it's brilliant. It explains so much of why the whole path to him and the covenant itself in its inception were both based upon, let's go walk together, let's go take this voyage together, and the voyage is not only through places but through your mind. And so if you look at how he walked Abraham away from Babylon into the promised land, and if you then look at the path, which is the Moed Mikre, beginning with the doorway of Passover and concluding with camping out with Sukkah, with camping out with him, if you recognize what's being done there for the purpose of a family relationship, I don't think there's any way of missing it. I think you're right. I mean, it was obvious. I just never saw it before.
Yeah.
That God's going to enjoy camping out with us and exploring for two reasons that I'd always recognized. The one, which is you take your children on a camping trip. Boy, it's really fun to see new things through their eyes, to see them enjoy the process. But it never dawned on me that when I've taken my boys on hikes through the high Sierras, half of the pleasure was myself seeing things for the first time. And the other half of the pleasure was watching them experience it. And so why would Yahowah, since he created us in his image, why would he be any different than that? So you have yet another benefit of not being all-knowing and all-present, beyond the benefit of the pain and agony of our behavior.
Yes, indeed.
You've taught a lot of art students over the years.
Yes, sir. Couple thousand.
At any one of those thousands of art students that you taught, by the time that you were invested in teaching them, draw something better than you think you could have drawn it?
They certainly grow where they know pretty much know everything I know, and everyone has a different style in art, so they may not do what I do, but what I used to do is when they get really good, I try to hire them.
Yeah, and then when somebody gets really good at art, and well, let's say their style is just different, but they draw something, you say, wow. Oh, yeah, I wish I had drawn that. That's that is really beautiful. Do you find that threatening or satisfying?
No, in fact, that's a little note I just made. Some teachers get threatened by that sort of thing, where it should bring a great pleasure that they've picked it up and they've learned and they've run with the ball.
Absolutely. So let's just take our position. You started learning. I was a conduit in a way. Of helping you appreciate what Yahowah was teaching.
Right.
And so the books that are written, yadayah.com, introdogod.org, questioningpaul.com, all served as a means to help you come to know and understand what Yahowah was teaching.
Made me fundamentally sound, yes.
Yeah, and then
his perspective, yes.
Right, and now I've always understood that Yahowah was not omnipresent nor omniscient for many reasons, one of which his whole method of perfecting us so that we can enter his presence requires that, and because the experience of creating humankind, knowing how miserable most of us are, would be so aggravating to him if he didn't have a filter. that it was obvious to me that he could not be omnipresent nor omniscient. And of course, our Australian friend explained it. That's because that he is in a dimension that is beyond the dimensions that he created. So he is not present in our dimension, although he can set apart part of himself to engage in our dimensions. He is not present. Yeah, he is outside of our dimensions.
Right.
And that being the case, I realized that those were those issues that were related to that, and that Yahowah really wanted to camp out, to explore, go on voyages of discovery, and that Yahowah loved to teach. I got all of that, but I never dawned on me that one of the benefits of him not being omnipresent and all-knowing is that he too can enjoy the voyage of discovery and see things and experience them for the first time, which would make all of creation meaningful to him.
Yeah.
And yet you came up with that.
Well,
the most satisfying thing that can happen. Now, it does mean that when the guest becomes smarter and more knowing and more knowledgeable than the host, the roles reverse. So tomorrow you'll be hosting the show, and I'll call that as a guest.
Not on your life. I've tried this 3 times, and I'm surprised I ever get invited again. So that's no. The teachers, it's fun to see the light come on. It's fun to see the growth. I don't have any children, so it's, but I'm sure if I did, I'd feel exactly the same way there.
We get
friends, whatever.
On Friday evenings or afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in, together we host a show with JB and with Larry. And with both guys, the same thing has happened. And it's gone from a feeling like, okay, you've got to teach to drive this forward, and to the point now when either one speaks, we're all learning. So I think Yahowah has created a means for us to all contribute to one another.
We need the women at the party, though.
We do, and there are.
I know they are.
They just don't participate. They won't participate quite as much. But one of the things that we look at in terms of our experience in eternity as part of Yahowah's family is that it is important that our personality accompanies us, and our proclivities that are unique to our soul accompany us. Because if we were all the same in eternity, you, Larry, Glenn, and I and JB all have unique approaches and attitudes to things and unique parts of our persona. If we retain all of those things in eternity, it's going to make eternity so much more interesting than if we were all the same.
We'll view it all different, but we'll all bring something to the table, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, you'll see it a little differently than I see it, which will be a little differently than Larry sees it. And by the fact that we're all seeing things slightly differently from a little different perspective, with a personality twist and spin on it. I don't know about Scott, but with the rest of us,
a better golf swing too.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. The reason that we're talking about all of this in family terms is that Yahowah invited Abraham and us through him to participate in a Beireth. And the Beireth is based upon the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, Be'eth, which means family and home. So when we as husbands and our wives, when we as mothers or fathers, when we as children to our own parents, look at what Yahowah is offering from the perspective of family, from having brothers and sisters, then we understand what it is that God wants, what he enjoys, what he's offering, and we even come to understand the house rules, don't we?
Absolutely.
In your home, would it be okay for your wife to bring in another man to function in the role of husband?
No,
You just say, no, I'm jealous in that regard. No, not going to tolerate it. Will Yahowah tolerate us bringing in another father to serve in the role of God?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. And in your home, would it be appropriate for someone to bring in weapons and an established military?
No, absolutely not either.
In your home, let's say that you had done your study and you found that there were a group of people out there that were really prone to terrorism, and that is that anybody that didn't surrender to their religion, anyone that discussed their religion in any way that sounded critical to the religion, they would go off and kill. Would it be appropriate that your wife would bring in people who were practitioners of that religion into your home?
Hardly.
What if your wife was into raising rats? That rats were her passion. They're kind of cute in some ways. But she really liked rats, and she found some rats with the bubonic plague. Would she be able to bring those rats into your home?
I would prefer she didn't.
Yeah.
So.
No. So, yeah, the answer, yeah, of course, just no. So, Yahowah's house rules, aren't they about the same? Now, let's say that your house was about learning, because you really like to teach, and your house was about exploring, going on to camping trips together.
Okay.
Would you think it would be okay if your wife were to suddenly teach lies?
No, that would be contrary to everything.
And what if the truth was the single most enlightening and empowering thing in the world? What if your wife had no interest in it?
That'd be disappointing at the least.
Yeah, exactly. But Yahowah's house rules are exactly what we ought to expect. They're no different than what we would establish as house rules.
No, there's nothing coarse about it or difficult about it or undesirable about it.
Are you worse off or better off as husband and wife in a family with having a house rule that you can't bring in a military to share the master bedroom?
Yeah, you're always better off, of course.
Are you better off not having another husband to contend with in the bedroom?
Better off.
Yeah. Are you better off or worse off not having a cadre of lies, of deception brought into your home that is precluding you from understanding the truth?
Yeah, better.
So is there any rule in Yahowah's covenant that is a sacrifice where you are worse off? You gave something so that God could get something, but he took something from you that had some merit.
Well, there's nothing in there that's not beneficial to you, so you're better for him doing it this way.
And we're only talking about the conditions of the covenant. We're not talking about the benefits of the covenant.
No.
What part of being immortal isn't of interest to you? Yeah. What part of being? I don't want to ever speak for you, but I know that I'm a reasonably flawed individual.
Oh yeah, everybody is flawed.
Yeah, and so what part of him not seeing my flaws and flooding the dark faces with light so that they're literally obliterated? What part of that's not appealing?
Well, I really like the light in the room and the darkness goes away. I like that analogy.
Yeah, I love it. And what part of being adopted into the Creator's family, so that you inherit the universe? Is there any part of that?
Who don't want to live in the big house? Come on.
Who doesn't want to live in the big house? Absolutely. And this being enriched with teaching and education and with experiences, that sounds pretty good to me.
That sounds great.
And I realize that we are stuck in the fourth dimension. We have no wiggle room whatsoever, and so we're a three-dimensional construct in a four-dimensional construct with no wiggle room in the fourth dimension whatsoever. Wouldn't you like being liberated in the fourth dimension so that you could actually explore the universe? Wouldn't you like to be empowered so you get out of the physical limitations that preclude us from most everything? I mean, the physical limitations, that's the part of us that's decaying. I mean, I don't know about you, but I wake up, each morning now with a few more aches and pains and less capacity and capability than I did years ago.
Oh, yeah. That's the nature of the beast, I'm afraid.
So, wouldn't you like to be able to be jettisoned of the physical body and to be enriched and to be empowered and to be able to actually experience dimensions beyond the 3.1 that we're stuck in?
Well, I'm ready.
I am too. Yeah,
you convinced me, pal.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so that's what's being offered to us. It's not any more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And by us engaging in this way, we bring great pleasure to our Creator. All of it was for the thousands who choose to participate.
Yeah, that's so tragic, that statement.
Yeah, there's thousands amongst the billions, which is one in a million. But it's enough. It was enough for Yahowah to create the universe and to conceive life.
Yeah.
And it's enough to create an interesting eternity. That there's going to be a different perspective, a different personality to all of the thousands who are there.
Now, I'm reminded by Torah, that in the 1,000 years to come, when he's here, then the numbers will grow substantially. So. Yeah,
that's true.
So it won't be quite the small number where it's just a shame of all the billions that have come before to have so few that couldn't find it. Yeah.
And there were significant chasms of time where Yahowah, through his prophet Yahshua, said, "I couldn't find one."
Yeah.
I couldn't find one.
That leads us in. Let me address a minute the third point that you made about sharing stuff. Now,
yes,
Yahowah shared everything that was important to members of his family who became members of his family, from Abraham to Moshe, from even way back to Noah. And then he unfortunately, then he gets buried because people don't want to hear it, they don't want anybody else to hear it, and so they buried it. And then, to your credit, you actually spent an enormous amount of time and an enormous amount of money and effort to dig it out. And then I've been, as so many of the listeners here, I've been quite benefit. It's been a great benefit that you did that, because now I can see it. And the only thing that I bring to the table, and the reason I bring this up, is because I get some emails from time to time, and people kind of write like, I know something, and it's all I did, and let me share this with them. So if we're talking about sharing, because this is the fun part about sharing. I mean, all that other stuff is great too, but the fun part about this show and sharing is that you've laid out enough where if you'll study, when I studied that, I got my perspectives and my bearing correct. So when I started to really do a little bit of my feeble attempts at translating, and I started going through the lexicons and the things, and you've listed all the things you need to find. I don't do anything unique. I mean, truly, I do absolutely nothing unique. You put charts in there that had the old ancient alphabet in it and what those letters meant. I've dug up a couple more charts and I combined some so that I have the modern Hebrew letters and the discovery that the letters actually have meaning as well as when they put them together to make a word. So armed with all that is all I needed to go through all these lexicons and convert back the old language the new language to the old language to see what it meant in the old language. And that's all I do. And when people write and say, well, like I have some special take on something, I don't have any special take on things. It's real straightforward. He speaks about as plain as anybody I've ever heard if you don't muddle it up with lousy translations. And you can check everything in your translations, and anything that I say, you could certainly, piece of cake, you can go look at it and look up the words, and that's what the stuff says. So I don't bring anything to the table that is unique. We are indeed just sharing what Yahowah said, and anybody can check it. I mean, this is not, you don't need a source beyond that, just go do it.
I bet I've written that in 1,000 emails, maybe 5,000.
Yeah.
I bet you have. Yeah, somebody will say, I want your insight here.
Yeah, like I have some special.
I don't have an insight.
No.
I'll tell you what Yahowah had to say about this. I'll share his perspective and his teaching on it, but I only know his teaching and perspective on it because I methodically went through what he had to say. I just read it, studied it, thought about it, translated it. There was absolutely no skill set required. My training to do this is equivalent to yours.
And I feel embarrassed when people do something. I feel very uncomfortable, let's say, when and get an email that says, well, what do you think? Or maybe, you should call Kirk and
Me too.
And he knows something, he knows all those. I've got a little chart right in front of my face right now, and I can look over here and read it and say, okay, and I'm so familiar with it now.
Right.
And I can break down the word, even if you've done it phonetically, but you can look them all up online on an interlineary, and even though they spell them a little different, or they don't spell them different, but they pronounce them different because of the pointing system that the rabbis use, Shamar, no matter where you find it, and it'll give you a number, and you can look up the number, and you go look, on and on and on.
Yes, but it's beyond just the fact that we can define what Shamar means, which is to observe, to closely examine, and carefully consider.
Right.
But beyond that, if you pause, once you've come to know what the word means, and then you apply it to the big picture, what is God asking of us? What does He want for us? And then you consider Shamar from that perspective. Then you understand. Welcome back to Shattering Myths conversation with Kirk. And Kirk, I think that you have essentially explained what the benefit is of learning, and what has been offered to us in a book labeled teaching. As you know, Torah does not mean law.
No, not at all.
There's no association with the concept of law anywhere in the etymology of Torah.
Not even remotely.
Not even remotely. The verb upon which Torah is based, and the verbs always define nouns in Hebrew, they do in most ancient languages, is yara. It means the source from which guidance and teaching, instruction and direction flow. That's what the word means. And so when Yahowah constantly uses the verb that you mentioned, and I think it's his favorite verb, and I think the verb ties in with this whole concept we were talking about earlier of exploring together, going through the universe and exploring the life in the universe, just as Yahowah did with Adam. One of the very few insights we have to how Adam and Yahowah spent their time, he praised every living thing before Adam so that they could discuss it. Sharing, witnessing the nature of animal life. And the verb shamar, what does it mean?
It means to do the same thing, carefully examine.
To observe. To witness, to pay attention to. When we go off and we spend time with, exploring the universe, going to different galaxies, going to different solar systems and planetary systems within our galaxy and other galaxies, witnessing the formation of nebula, but also witnessing the birth of life and life on other planets, aren't we going to go as witnesses, as observers?
Of course. Well, look at it all. Study it all.
What else could you do in eternity that would be stimulating over that chasm of time?
Well, you certainly ain't going to sit there and play a harp.
No, your fingers would get really numb. I like harp, but after I've heard about the fifth or sixth harp song, okay, let's pick up something that's a little upbeat. Can we bring in maybe a vocal?
Somebody play on the spoons or something.
I happen to like the lyrics and the melody of Simon and Garfunkel, for example. I even find that I'm dating myself here, but John Denver's songs are uplifting in lyrics and in melody. But after I've heard about 10 John Denver songs or 5 or 6 of the songs from Simon and Garfunkel,
they can wear.
I'm ready for something new. That's what eternity is going to be. Constant exposure to that which is new while always being able to return to that which is familiar. and doing it with friends.
I think that's good. So we can, well, you know, you finished the little last section, and with what we want to do is understand. And, of course, the funny thing is your favorite word, bien.
Yeah,
understand is a picture of a family home where God's reaching down to help lift up his inheritance.
Yeah, lift up his children who are born with an inheritance. Yeah, so it's the family and home, the bien. The Y is Yahweh's hand reaching down, not only to lift us up, but to lead us as Dad through the creation that he has created. So we walk hand in hand on that great camping trip through the ultimate high Sierras. And that is the inheritance that his children are going to receive. That's the Hebrew word bien, B-Y-N. That's my favorite word because it also, not only is it beautiful in its description and intent, and not only does it explain what eternity is going to be like and why the conduit for determining, the doorway for determining, the portal for determining who's inside and who's outside is who Shamar and Bien observe to understand. But it's also because I have come to conclude, I'm on solid ground here because Yahweh defined the word bien as to make connections. That the way you go from knowing to understanding is you make connections. You relate things. You look at cause and effect. You look at condition and benefit. That everything fits together. And that the more you make connections about what Yahweh had to say from his creation testimony and the 6 + 1 days through his Shabbat testimony of 6 + 1 days to his Moed Mikra invitations to meet that are on a 6 + 1 formula, after a while you make enough connections. And you and I can understand. We'll be with you again tomorrow. May God bless.